Dun-dee-dun-dun-dun. No business like show business. Well, hello, everyone. Oh, glad to see everybody here in time to get the show underway. We've got a lot to cover on today's show. We're going to be introducing the unexplained file. As a matter of fact, our legal team from upstairs, they came down. They were quite concerned when they heard me talking about all of this and decided that perhaps we should cover our bases on this show. I've done that. They sent down this disclaimer for me to have, but the problem was that the disclaimer was, well, it had a lot of legal talk, so I edited it down a little bit, changed a few things, and I think we'll all be a lot more comfortable with that. Roll the disclaimer, guys.
Please remember that thoughts and opinions heard on this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of the Free Range Texan podcast, 18PR, or Michael Sean himself. Interviews and information are and is screened through a meticulous process, not unlike the entrance requirements to the US of A, Costco, or a 24-hour McDonald's. Any disturbed or disgruntled Free Range podcast subscribers are referred to freerangetexan.net, where if enough of you band together, Michael Sean will be in really big trouble. Again.
Hey, settle down. Get your game face on, sweetie pie. 7.
Start the clock.
6.
Stand by, Eddie Bay 1.
5.
Stand by, sweetie pie.
4.
Bring studio mics hot.
3.
Stand by, Michael Sean.
2.
Roll music.
1.
Well, howdy, y'all. The Free Range Texan podcast is underway. This here program is a special look at the way life is shaping up for folks in the US of A, seen through the eyes of a born and bred West Texan. Our host is a veteran broadcaster who is known for his campfire visits on radio. Michael Sean is standing by.
Stand by, Michael Sean.
So here he is, our host, a real Free Range Texan himself, Michael Sean.
Podcasting from behind the wall. Thank you, sweetie pie. Free Range Texan, episode number 4. This show not made in Hollywood. Cowboys and other Texas men and women are not actors. They're the real McCoy. Roughly half of the population here in the United States enjoy podcasts daily. A growing phenomenon. We have our unexplained files today on the show, something we're going to feature. Bigfoot enthusiasts. You should hear this one. We have other files we may not have time for today. Our heroes and heroines file, often heard here on the Free Range Texan. Sasquatches in Texas? Are you kidding me? Right outside of Houston? What a show we got for you today. And of course, as always, we always wind up with a little time at the campfire. Free Range Texan, get saddled up. We're getting ready to ride. Wait a minute. Stop the presses. Hold the phone just a second. We have forgotten to mention as we like to do on every one of our free-range Texan podcasts, our studio band, who continues to rehearse constantly day after day and get better and better at what they do. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, in the studio with us, we have the crystal clear Rio Grande Mariachis. Yeah, you guys keep practicing. It's kind of short. We'll get back to you. And now, welcome inside the world of a free-range Texan unexplained file. Glenn Gerard is a regular workaday Texan. He lives in Houston, has a job, has a family, and appears to be a normal, likable fellow. He does, however, have what some might say is an unusual hobby. He walks in the woods and believes he communicates with a Sasquatch family. And after spending a couple of days with him, I believe what he says is happening is happening. Our interview wound up taking place on the town square of the sleepy West Texas town of Crosbyton. The background noise you hear are people coming and going from the Crosbyton County Museum building, where a meeting for the last 2 days has been held concerning people who believe in the Bigfoot phenomena. Houston, Texas resident Glenn Gerard. But just driving a little ways north of Houston. Now, where exactly is it that you go?
The Sam Houston National Forest.
You've had some pretty interesting experiences there.
Yes.
Would you tell me about that?
We've had numerous Sasquatch encounters, from rock throwing, trees being pushed over. Actually, I need to rephrase that, trees being pulled over. We've had, where they parallel us up and down the trail.
Do you characterize yourself as a Sasquatch hunter?
Not so much hunter as just a researcher. More of a researcher.
How did you get involved in all of it?
My interest started probably way back in the 70s.
I like this voice, I want to learn.
Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of, and just what they had, the one they did on Bigfoot, and I just found it real curious as a kid. And my great-grandparents lived in Laurel, Mississippi, and my great-grandmother told of the same thing that they had there in Mississippi that would live behind their house in the swamp areas, and they actually called them the Panther Woman. And she said that my grandmother's brother had an encounter one night and came in was white as a sheet, but that they kind of blew him off because he was a known drinker. But he described the same thing, walking across the road, big hairy giant. And since then, I'd always kind of had an interest, and we had bought property actually in Cold Spring back then, but I never associated them with Texas. I didn't realize they were here. I thought they were just a California, Oregon, Washington thing. And then as we got older, we started hearing rumors that there were some potential sightings in our area. So me and my nephew and a buddy of mine went up there one night just to check it out, see if there was any truth to it, and there was.
Now, when you say you went up there one night, you're talking about the Sam Houston State Park?
Yes. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes north of Houston. But it covers a pretty wide area. It goes all the way over from Conroe, from the west side of I-45 to the east side of 59. So it's a pretty large expanse of forest.
Well, now, I don't want to oversimplify this, but were you just walking out in the woods with flashlights, or what were you doing?
No. When we went, we did some studying, and they said, don't use white lights. Try not to use any lights, but if you have to, use a red light. That doesn't seem to bother them. And, it was more or less, we just went out there just to see if there was any truth to it. And I had actually stopped by our customers that day, and we had a hose that had failed. It was a diesel hose. So I threw it in the bed of my truck. And I didn't get a chance to go back by the shop to drop it off before we went out for that evening. So I had this stinky gasoline hose in the bed of my truck. Well, we went to a couple of spots, which we had looked up in the map just to try to find somewhere that's isolated, dark, and hey, well, let's go there. And we went to a couple of places, had maybe a potential howl. Went to another place. Okay, this was pretty cool. Yeah, we can definitely do this again. And when we were walking back to the truck, my buddy had a camera. He had turned it off and everything, and I had parked right by a bend. And very first trip, as soon as we came around the bend, there was one standing right there next to my truck, looking in the bed of the truck, I guess seeing what was stinking up the area.
Now, when you say one, describe what you saw.
It was probably about 1 in the morning. You could see it was a black object. You could see the outline, but you couldn't really make it out. But the main thing that you did notice was these 2 big flaming red eyes. And he looked down at us. And even though we were probably 20, 30 feet from us, he was looking down at us. And he turned and looked at us. I grabbed my nephew. My buddy froze. We were like, are we seeing this? And this thing turned and looked at us for a second, and then turned and just walked off into the woods. And ever since then, we've been going again. It was kind of like a rush. I guess, most how people like roller coasters. Well, I don't like roller coasters, but I guess that same excitement, fear, and adrenaline that they get from that's what I get from going to Sasquatch. And actually we keep going, trying to find more answers, but usually we just end up with more questions. Occasionally you get one answer, but then in the process you get 10 more questions to try to figure out.
A lot of people are going to hear what you're saying, and they're going to wonder, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, living right outside of Houston, Texas. And I'm assuming from what you've said that there's more than one.
Oh yes, definitely. We've actually, after we kept going to this one place for a couple of years, that we actually came across a family group. And there's 3. Mind you, they never step out and just let you see them in the daylight. You can catch a brief glimpse, but usually it's just their eye shine that shines at you. And usually it'll be from behind a tree. It's like they can turn their eyes on like a little mini flashlights. Usually it's white, but I guess if they're startled or spooked or angry, they can go red. But we actually had one where there was 3. I'm assuming here that were females. They were about 7 foot tall, and then there was a big tall one, which was about 8 foot, 8'6". I'm assuming was a male, and then they had a juvenile that was probably 3.5 to 4 foot tall. And usually when we would go to the same area over and over, they knew it was us, they knew who we were, and over a period of time they developed some trust to where we'd get out of the truck, we'd walk in and look up and see their eye shine peeking at us from behind a tree. And then, but they developed such a trust with us that they would allow the juvenile to practice his stealth techniques, getting as close to us as he could.
Tell us about that. How did you know that was what was happening?
You just knew. It's kind of like what she said in there, mind speak. I'm not going to say that, but it was like hey, how y'all doing tonight? You know, it just, you could kind of feel it. Hey, Junior here is going to practice on y'all tonight if you don't mind. And we would go up and down these trails, and every so often, you know, you could hear him trying to parallel us. But if he would break a stick or make a noise or something where we heard him, we would tell, you messed up, you need to go back and start over again. And then you'd hear limbs breaking and stomping, and he'd get angry and go back, and we'd give him a little bit, and then we'd start walking again, and then 5-10 minutes later, here he'd come again. You know, and we had that happen on probably 5 or 6 different trips. But usually what we'd do is we'd get off of work on Friday, eat, change, run up to the woods. Normally get up there about 8, and then we'd hike around till about 1-2 in the morning and come back. There was some times where they didn't want us there, and usually if they didn't want us there, that would involve throwing a rock and hitting a tree pretty hard, like head high right next to you, which means they're either hunting or got juveniles around or infants or whatever, but get out. And we let them control it. If they didn't want us there, we'd leave. And then other times, you know, we would show up, they'd seem like they'd want to play around for a little bit, you know. But it's usually what we do is when we get there is we do a couple of howls to let them know we're there. And usually it's not us going out and finding them, it's them hearing us being there and coming in to see what's going on.
Now I'm going to ask you to do something. If you can, mimic the howl that you would do to call up a Sasquatch.
Mostly what it is it's a whoop that we do, kind of a whoop, and that's actually what we've heard them doing to kind of communicate with each other over distances. And that seems to be the main call that they'll use around there. And typically what we do is we'll have, if there's 3 or 4 of us out there, we'll all howl at the same time, the same way, to make us sound bigger, to sound like another Squatch. And then instantly that pretty much gets their attention to come in and see, hey, you know, somebody's trespassing, let's go see what it is. And then, no, it's Glenn and his buddies again walking through, you know, and then maybe they feel like playing around, maybe they don't.
I want to ask you a personal question.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you're here is for a conference on the Bigfoot phenomena in the United States. You're approximately 10 hours from your home in Houston. Would that be fair?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Why did you come all this way?
Just to come up here, and because a lot of these places you'll find people, they'll have people here from different states, different parts of the country, and everybody seems to be experiencing the same thing. It's not just an animal, half human running around out there. There's something way more to them. They're highly intelligent, very strong, and like I said, if we just keep going just to try to find more answers, but once again, like I said, you end up with more questions than answers. But it's definitely fortunate. We've been fortunate. Nothing bad has ever happened to us besides, you know, taking a couple tumbles here and there when you're walking around at night, you know. But you know, we've had everybody tell us, oh, it's just kids messing with you. Really? You know, because we're 13 miles off of 59 down a 2-lane road, and then down a 1-lane dirt road 2 miles out in the forest, barely with the flashlight, and yet there's people moving around at the dark waiting for us so they can go boo. Nah, I don't believe that. But we've had roars, howls. We've smelled them on numerous occasions. More so, it seems like the smell seems like it's more so that they stink during the summer. And I would say it's probably more apt to be probably an internal mosquito bug repellent. You know, because they don't seem to really smell that much during the winter or off, you know, when it's not super hot.
Anything else you'd like to say concerning this whole thing?
You know, for those that are interested, I mean, I've had a lot of people, I've been hunting and this, and I've never seen anything. And it just, a lot of times you have to know what you're looking for. I mean, it's not like they just step out and go, hey, here I am, take a picture of me. It doesn't work like that. And it's really hard to get any kind of footage of them because you pretty much have to walk around with the camera recording full time for just a quick glimpse of one when they run from one tree to another. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. You have to go numerous times. We've been going off and on for about 10 years, and we've accumulated quite a bit of information and evidence over that time. But a lot of times we'll go and nothing will happen. Sometimes we go and we're not there 5 minutes and stuff's already happening. It's about like fishing. You get in your boat, you go try to this spot, see if the fish are biting there. Nope. You keep going another spot until you see if you can find them. But in our areas, typically, if you could locate the coyotes, if you can do even a couple of howls or you get the coyotes to respond, normally if you can pinpoint where the coyotes are at, the Sasquatchers are usually close by. They have some sort of a relationship. I don't know if they provide extra help, protection for the coyotes, and the coyotes help provide an early warning system for the squatches, so they let them know if the humans are coming down the trail or not. But usually if you can find the coyotes, you'll find the squatches.
Glenn, thank you.
Not a problem, sir.
Glenn Gerard, Houston, Texas. If you'd like more information about Glenn Gerard or any other of our unexplained files, go to freerangetexan.net. Again, that's freerangetexan.net. Well, that kind of got the juices going, didn't it? Free Range Texan Podcast. You might as well stay saddled up. We're going to be riding on here in just a moment. We have a word from those folks we love at 18PR, and we're going to be talking about some things there. And also coming up later on the podcast, we have another trip to yours truly's campfire. It's always a pleasure. One of my favorite campfire stories. Coming up on the Free Range Texan Podcast. Have you tried to hire vocal talent from a studio capable of delivering the polished professional sound for corporate presentations, commercials, or even phone answering systems? It can be a little bit pricey. 18PR is probably who you're looking for. Producing broadcast quality products with talented vocal artists that produce in a creative digital environment. Located in Texas, not a union shop. What that means is less overhead with the production talent and quality that you're looking for. Thinking about producing your own radio syndicated show or podcast? Let 18PR provide the production and post-edit support that you may need. Now, you can take my word for it because, after all, among other things, 18PR produces this podcast. Or see for yourself. Find out more about 18PR on our website at freerangetexan.net. Oh, yes, and tell them Michael sent you. Hi, this is Michael Sean. Welcome to the Campfire. Heard a story by Bob Kenford the other day. I rent a small horse rental operation, only open on weekends. On Friday nights, I'd take my girlfriend, Kathy, and my other little buddy, Slim, and we'd gather the horses out of their 200-acre pasture and into the quarter-acre catch pen. We'd camp out all weekend because we needed to catch the 20 horses at daylight Saturday morning and saddle them up and lead them to where their stables were located in a nearby national park. We needed to check on the horses at night, which was the reason that we camped all weekend, and Slim's mother would let Slim come stay out there with us the entire weekend. Now, maybe I should mention now that back in the day, I liked to go dancing, and there was a dance every Saturday night only 40 miles away. So Saturday night, we would check on the horses, then leave and check on the horses again when we got back. Kathy and I would remain sober, but Slim was another story. When we left over yonder at the dance, to help me stay awake, I'd stop at a water trough, which marked the halfway point on the trip back, and dunk my head under the cold water. Spring water. It felt great, and the very same trough, I might add, where Slim kept a six-pack submerged in the cold water. Slim would usually wake at this point on the drive home. However, on the trip back, he didn't wake up at all, and not until I stopped to unlock the front gate. He sat up and asked, "Are we at the water trough yet?" Well, next morning, a few of the horses were hard to catch, and I was walking out to catch one of the dependable horses when a pony ran by me. I tossed a lasso and dropped to the ground before the rope came tight. With a jerk, I was dragged across the ground for a few yards before the pony stopped. Now, Slim thought that looked like a great idea, so when one of the full-size horses ran by, he pitched the lasso, but his style was slightly different from mine. The loop was really pretty as it settled over the horse's neck, but forgot to drop to the ground. Still standing there, when the horse hit the end of the rope, Slim became instantly airborne. His legs were whirling like a windmill in a hurricane, and his arms were pointed straight over his head like he was jumping off a high dive. He refused to let go of the rope until just prior to his one-point landing, which jammed his hat down over his eyes. Now, folks, laughter is one of those uncontrollable reflexes that your brain can do absolutely nothing about. And the sight of Slim flying through the air set off my laughter reflex. The next thing Slim did had me rolling on the ground. Kathy, torn between helping Slim and thumping me on the back of the head, went to help Slim. Well, Slim rolled over, pulled his hat up off his eyes, and stood up and looked at his shoulder and says, "You know what? I think I broke my shoulder." And then he said, "You know what else? I think I'm going to pass out," which he promptly did. Well, we got him back to the truck and drove him to town. I kept chuckling the whole way, and once we got to the emergency room, I called his mother and explained the situation. And when she walked into the room, Slim grinned at me and asked, "Are we at the water trough yet?" Well, we all had a good laugh. To this day, Slim's mom doesn't know about the water trough. Well, all right. I'm Michael Sean. Have yourself another cup there. Thanks for joining us at the campfire. Adios, my friends.
Please remember that thoughts and opinions heard on this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of the Free Range Texan Podcast, 18PR, or Michael Sean himself. Interviews and information are and is screened through a meticulous process, not unlike the entrance requirements to the US of A, Costco, or a 24-hour McDonald's. Any disturbed or disgruntled Free Range Podcast subscribers are referred to freerangetexan.net, where if enough of you band together, Michael Sean will be in really big trouble. Again.
No Sasquatches were harmed in the recording of this show. I thought the lawyers would like that.
Y'all been listening to the Free Range Texan Podcast. If you'd like more information about our show or where to find the products we talked about on Free Range Texan, visit our website at freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. Free Range Texan is produced out yonder at 18PR Studios. Speaking for Michael Sean and the rest of our crew, this is Sweetie Pie, and we'll see you next time on the Free Range Texan Podcast.